Coogs House. Willie Fritz is building a football program in Houston, and the Cougs got some key pieces to the puzzle that we had to talk about.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. And if you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. If you want to join in the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us if you think goldfish count as animal crackers. Think about it before you answer. But do they? Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. More on that later, but FanDuel is having a great spring and summer with all the playoffs going on, so make sure you go check them out. Today, we're going to talk some about recruiting and Houston building a football program under head coach Willie Fritz. Obviously, if you have been listening to the show for a while, that means we'll bring on recruiting expert Brian Smith to tell us the latest on the newest quarterback coming to Houston and more. So let's welcome Brian onto the show. All right, we are joined once again by a recruiting expert from Locked On, Brian Smith. Brian, how are you doing?
Doing well, sir.
Doing well.
Just ready for some recruiting, my friend.
Question of the day, do you think goldfish are animal crackers?
No.
You had to think about it.
That is a weird question.
They're animal. Anyway, bigger questions loom in the Houston Cougar football program. Willie Fritz is getting his first full year worth of recruiting done for the class of 2025. And I tried to explain, but since you do recruiting all the time, a guy that comes in December like Willie, December of 23, doesn't really have a good shot at getting the guys he wants necessarily. You can make some changes by signing day of 24. But this 2025 class is a lot more emblematic of what he wants to be, right? Like, what does this mean for Willie, this class he's building here?
This means you're going to be able to tell if he's truly invested, because recruiting has changed so much for an old school guy like Fritz. That's probably hard. I'm sure he likes NIL about as much as I like buying extra razors for my head, but I got to do it. Look.
For the audio audience, I should say that we'll say it's nice and tight. I don't want to quite.
It's shaven all the way. That's what it is. Look, he's an old school guy that likes to have a system, somewhat militaristic. Recruiting's changed so much, you either adjust or you retire. Hence Nick Saban. He was just done dealing with it. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But I'm looking at their commitment list now on my screen. One of the kids that he has committed is an athlete from Lutcher, Louisiana. It's not that far from New Orleans. It's right on the river. It's a famous river town. And if he can get a few of those kids, obviously he's got New Orleans contacts, to mix in with the Houston and East Texas kids and stuff, they can slowly build this program. Obviously, we're getting ready for the visits to figure it out, but you have to get your first full class. It's got to be a really good one. You look at any team that made a run at a title, a conference title, whatever, that first class is usually very much, as you said, emblematic of what's coming. So far, so good. They just got a quarterback, etc. But I'm curious to see how this goes over the next 6 weeks.
Well, and let's talk about that quarterback, because Austin Carlisle committed in the last week from Missouri City, Ridgepoint High School. Good talent, always coming out of Missouri City.
Yes.
Yeah. Austin is listed as a 3-star quarterback. I would point out, though, that he is a quarterback at 5'11" that runs a 10.5 in the 100, right? Like, he's got some real speed. He can really move. And he's not listed as an athlete. He's listed as a quarterback. When you flipped on some stuff on him, what did you see? What jumped off the screen?
The first thing, and I didn't know anything about him, so his first few plays weren't runs, how quickly that he diagnoses what he's going to do, and the ball is released. Like, he has a very natural, quick release. I'm guessing he's played second base or shortstop at some point because he has that kind of mentality. I see it, I'm doing it. There's no hesitation. And in baseball, if you hesitate, you're really dead. So there's that. He's pretty accurate. Has a pretty nice arm. Can float it over the top. He's got a really good trajectory on the deep ball. But when they pressured him, it was like they were trying to lose the game because high school kids aren't going to tackle him very much one-on-one. They're just not, especially linemen. Like some of that lineman stuff was a joke. And even in Houston, like Houston's elite, by far the best guy on the field most time. So when he hit the gas, I was like, oh, he could run. I didn't know he could run like that. Like he's pulling away from kids in Houston like it's nothing. There's a difference between a guy that runs an 11 and a 10-5. Like 11's moving, and he's smoking that guy. So this is a kid you got to think twice about how you blitz him and how you use pressures. If you want to slant, you want to take chances, because if you have a backside opening, that's an 85-yard touchdown. So he's a unique player. It's just if he was 6'1", he'd have every offer in the country. He's 5'10" and a half.
Well, and frankly, whether it's Case Keenum or Houston has turned guys that they're their lone offer, lone D1 offer, lone at this point power 4 offer, and if you swing and hit it, that's always big time, right? I think again, a lot of people see the speed and think he's going to get moved or something. He's listed as a quarterback because he can throw the football, and I don't want to be unfair to the kid just because he's fast. I don't want a slow quarterback. I want someone that can move around a little bit back there, right? And so I don't know why that's a discussion with him as much. When you watch it, is there anything that jumps off that he needs to get better? He's got a senior year of high school still left to play, so he's got some time. But anything like, I want to see this out of him?
It's just some of the stuff that I can't see yet formationally. I imagine that Willie's going to want to run a little more multiple, a little more shift, et cetera. In high school, especially in Texas, they probably do it better than anywhere. The RPO game and the spread is so conveniently tossed around between coaches. They're all good at it. I'm curious what he would do under center, goal line, short yardage. Can he run just pure option? Just some things like with his athleticism. And then as a quarterback with some of the more traditional stuff, more the rhythm throws. He doesn't have to do that as much in the shotgun, but he might have to do some of it at least. I'm guessing. But I'm being picky because he's naturally athletic, obviously, beyond a doubt, and is accurate too. So the only thing he doesn't have is height. You can't change that. So we just kind of need to see, I guess the other thing is he's got to gain weight. Like he's not big enough yet. He needs to add some muscle.
He runs a very, like I said, his 100 is a 10.5. I can't find accurate seeming 40 times, but 100 is 10.5. Houston's got Zion Chris coming in the transfer portal from Louisiana. I keep wanting to say Lafayette, from Louisiana, period. Zion is an electric athlete as well. Does that share any insight as to what you think Kevin Barbay is going to try and do? Kevin Barbay was at Mississippi State last year, Appalachian State the year before. This is a couple of guys that got some real wiggle to them as quarterbacks.
I think it's the way to try to circumvent the game. Look, I used to laugh about this all the time. 25 years ago, before the spread really got rolling, like in the Big Ten, everybody ran the same offense, pretty much. So except for Purdue. And that's when it really kind of started to change. But if you're going to run the same offense Ohio State does and the same defense, and they get twice as many good players as you, who do you think's going to win? Like, this is not rocket science. Right. They're not going to get the same kids Texas A&M, and LSU is. They're not. Their quarterback position has to be dynamic. This is a smart move. And if you take an athlete, like there's no doubt Austin could play in 2-3 positions. Like he can be some kind of a slot. Maybe he can play corner. Maybe he can play running back. Like that's just a freak athlete. If it doesn't work out a quarterback, there's another spot for him. So I think that's the reasoning. They need a guy that can change the game. Linemen still are the end goal, and it's harder to get linemen for a program like Houston. But if you don't have a dynamic quarterback, you probably don't have any chance. So this is, I think, the future of what they're trying to do.
All right. Now, I've told you before, my wife and I are looking to get a house, and that means you got to get your finances in order. And I got to tell you about the latest and greatest from Yahoo Finance, one of the best places to help you with your finances. Because let's get straight to the point. What you really want to do is you want your portfolio to grow. You want to be dealing with all these inflations and debts and mortgages and all different things in life the best you can, and watch your money grow and work for you. With Yahoo Finance, you can get that financial freedom with access to news, data, tools, all the things you need to help reach that financial freedom as fast as possible. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for a little bit of extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They're the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at all the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst rankings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. So securely link your brokerage accounts to a unified view of your wealth, including the 401ks and other investments as well. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight you need to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. Joining him in the class 2025, you mentioned they've got 4 commitments so far, and we're on the early side of this, especially for our new staff. There was Richmond Ugochukwu. He's a linebacker from Richardson, Texas. Rashad Sterling is the edge rusher you mentioned from Louisiana. And Travis Bihaki is a defensive lineman from Arlington, Mansfield Summit High School in Arlington. Any of those guys jump off as someone you want to make sure you say something about? We're looking at this 2025, the early part of the 2025 class.
I haven't watched Sterling or Bihaki yet, but I like the kid from Richardson. Richmond, I'm not even going to try to say his name, but he hits and he enjoys it. Plays inside linebacker. He's a guy that probably would have fit in the Big Ten or Southwestern Conference in 1990, but he's also got the speed to run in today's game. He could be a 3-down linebacker, which is uber valuable because teams running that fast-paced stuff, kind of like Baylor did 5-10 years ago. They try to catch that linebacker getting in and out of the lineup and get, too many men on the field, etc. He can stay on the field. So Houston is adapting to the times, taking athletes. They could play multiple spots. Richmond could also probably play the overhand spot, the kind of that hybrid safety.
Yeah.
That's a really hard spot to recruit.
Well, and it's interesting because he's a 6 foot, it's 6'1.5" 205-pound linebacker. I kind of feel like that's really moldable clay from just a physical standpoint, as far as the overhang safety or one of a Will linebacker or a Sam linebacker. Like he can kind of grow into a lot of different things. Do you see that kind of flexibility, or does he stick out as one of the, like he's very specifically this type of linebacker?
Mentality wise, the way he plays more north-south says inside linebacker, but his frame as it is today, now this is going to change.
Right.
College weight program, no offense to any high school program, pretty much outside of maybe IMG or Mater Dei or something. It's just not the same. So he's going to weigh 225 after he gets done with, like, assuming he redshirts this next spring, kind of just works on that stuff. Like he's going to go into that mindset, maybe play some special teams or whatever. Next year, maybe I'm wrong. It's not a red shirt because, I got up to 225. I got up to 230. Then he could play at 205. He's not playing inside backer very much. He can feel it. Okay. Well, it's hard enough as it is, but like 205, that's no bueno.
If the University of Houston trots out a 205-pound inside linebacker on anything outside of 3rd and 25, we've got really big problems.
There have probably been some times like that in the last 10 years at Houston.
We've had some really big problems. Okay, chill out. While we're on the defense side of the ball, one of the more interesting offers that Houston's made in the last 10 days is a kid named Jacaden Ferguson. Jacaden Ferguson's another Missouri City kid, Fort Bend Marshall. Great athletic program, right? Jacaden Ferguson already had a Houston offer as a wide receiver from the previous staff. Willie Fritz's staff honored it, kept it going, and then added on, mostly because of Coach Etheridge, the DB's coach. He's the one that is listed as having handed out the offer actually on Twitter, handed him a defensive back offer as well. I think it's interesting. Jacaden Ferguson's listed as a 4-star athlete on Rivals. 24/7 has him listed as both corner and receiver, but a 3-star at both of those things. You watch this guy and you think he's a wideout. What makes that decision for you? What I want to first ask about what makes Jacaden a great receiver, and then ask about this idea of 2 position.
A couple of things. Number one, he's pretty nifty for a guy that got a little bit of height, got long arms, good with timing going up and getting the football. In this era, if you don't score, you're going to lose. I mean, think about it this way. Georgia gives up 40 points in playoff games sometimes. Michigan does. You have to score. And then finally, I think kind of Houston's history is they've always had offensive teams. No, I'm not saying they have had some great defensive players. They have. Kind of just fits the genre down there. Everybody throws the ball around. I think it would just be good. They need excitement. He fits that. And all his skills together, like he's a guy that can play early. I'm surprised that I'm not saying he has to go to LSU or Oklahoma or something, but I think he could play at those schools. So this could be a sneaky situation for them. If they can get that kid, he's going to play pretty early. Again, he can play defense, but I would play him receiver.
Well, and again, you're hoping that there's something to being from Missouri State. There's something to staying home, going to University of Houston. There's some value there because I think you're right that on all his offer sheets, he's got the Arkansas, the Auburns. He does have Georgia and Alabama offers, though people don't really have him projected as there. He's got high-end potential as far as the offer sheet goes, but there's nothing like playing at home, and I hope that there's something to that for him as well. In looking at Jakaden and this idea of, the defense also offered him, especially if he sticks out as a receiver as you see him, and at 6'3", he probably does. What is the staff? Is it as simple as the defensive coach says, hey, he can play for me too? Is it trying to play nice, trying to make a relationship, build a relationship? What's the purpose of that? Why offer the defense side as well?
Unless Jakaden was like, hey, can I at least have the option? I'm guessing it's the things that you mentioned in combination. If you're the defensive back coach at Houston, if you didn't want that kid in your defensive backs room, you should be fired. I said the same thing about the head coach about something similar last year. He got fired right after. There's a reason for these statements. Okay, some things are just not that hard.
So far, we've been doing this show a little bit over about a year and a half. You have correctly called the firings.
Sometimes it's not that hard. Like the most important evaluations I do are the easiest ones. They are the 3 clippers. It's like, well, duh, this guy runs through this guy, jumps over him, and runs around everybody else. He's good. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard. That's one of these kids, and he's doing it in Missouri City. He's doing it in Houston. He's doing it. They go over the east side. He's doing it against whoever he's doing on the east. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If he wants to play running back, you say yes. If he wants to play safety, it's yes. That's it. So I think Houston just needs athletes like that. They'll figure it out. Like Willie's taking tons of kids like this in Louisiana and stuff. He was at Tulane. Maybe not as further along, like Houston area, like the facilities and stuff are ridiculous at the high schools. They have all the things they need. It's not rural Louisiana. They do not have that. I can attest to that firsthand, but this is a kid that can take a big step forward still with 1 year. Like he's going to be 6'3", 215, playing boundary receiver and starting for Houston as a sophomore. But at what spot, all the time? Or are they going to move him to running back? Or maybe he plays free safety at the end of the half? This kid can do all kinds of things. Yeah, I would look at him as one of the rare guys that can play both sides of the ball, especially Houston doesn't have that many guys like him. You have to at least give him the option.
All right. Now, I think Willie Fritz is building a winner. And if you want to keep on winning and getting the spirit with him right away, you got to go to FanDuel right now, because right now it's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home the big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. For what it's worth, for folks at home that don't know Jakaden's game yet, it's worth getting acquainted to. But the lowest I see him ranked in the state of Texas on anything is as the 53rd player. Like, he's a very, very talented athlete and a great state for high school football. As I'm looking across guys that have gotten offers from Houston recently, I think of the Barbay offense as one that runs the ball more. They offered a running back named Cornelius Warren from Fort Worth's North Crowley High School. I say Fort Worth, it's really almost in the mid-cities. They offered a lineman from Florida named Lamar Williams, who's 6'6", 270, and a different lineman from Jasper, Texas, named Demetrius Dean. I want to put the ball in your court because I think that this team is going to be a team that runs the football more than people realize, and that makes these guys important. Which of these jumps off to you?
I think they're all good players. I know Lamar because I've seen him before and met him. Big body kid. He's bigger than 270. I can assure you that. He's pushing 3 bills.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I don't want to be supporting his food intake. I can tell you that too. I really like the kid from Jasper, Texas, though. The offensive lineman. That kid has been coached. He's good with zone steps. He comes off his guy, moves guy, goes up to the second level. He gets out in space and hits people. He's been coached well, and he really plays hard. That is a football player. I don't care what his ranking is, and I think 24/7 has him in their top 300 anyway. But that's just a good football player. And Jasper is one of those programs. On Friday night, there's nothing else going on in Jasper, okay,
right,
except for the tumbleweeds rolling through. So they're going to the game. It means something to those kids. He's taking advantage of that, and that's how the game should be played. Houston used to get some of these kids, and it made a difference. So this is a guy, again, he could probably play as a sophomore. Take him all day. Lamar is another kid. He's probably a little further along physically, just being big, but he's not as developed technically. He's a redshirt kid. It's got a chance. The running back style, I'm not saying he's the same player. Before I say this, stylistically, he's a lot like Kyron Williams with the Rams. He's really picky about when he takes the jet, hits that step for 2 or 3 steps, really hits a burst. Kyron's not a 10-5 guy in the 100, but you hardly catch him because he takes the right angle, he does it at the right time, and he sets you up with moves, and nobody hits him one-on-one. This running back does the same thing. So they're scouting well, which is not surprising. Willie and his staff, that's what they were paid to do at Tulane. They weren't getting the kid that Bama didn't want. They weren't coming in second to Bama on top recruits. They had to find guys. They're doing the same thing at Houston. They're doing a good job.
What's funny to me about these three, so I agree. I think that they're intentionally picking guys that can come in and help very quickly. Maybe not as freshmen, but very quickly. As I look at the other Power 4 offers in each of their offer sheets, there are some schools that are different between each one, right? Lamar's got Miami, Maryland, Georgia Tech, Florida State. Demetrius has Missouri, and Cornelius, the running back, he's got Miami, but Ole Miss as well, right? They also all seem to have Baylor. And I don't know what to make of the fact that each of these guys also holds a Baylor offer, if that's just a Texas Big 12 like sized kind of program or what the deal is. But I feel like Houston's going to end up going head to head with Baylor on a couple of these guys, and I don't know what to make of that outside of they're just another in-state program of I don't know. Does that mean anything to you, or does that matter? And am I making mountains out of molehills?
Baylor has fallen off because of the game that they're playing is not the same one A&M in Texas is playing. The NIL and all that. I don't think the current head coach at Baylor, who I like, is ready to go down the path that college football is going. That's what that says. I think he will be in the NFL as a coordinator. I just don't think they don't want to do that. So
it is the heel turn on Aranda nationally has been interesting because I do feel like he was a very well-respected coach. And then I thought he was going to get fired last December. I was surprised to see that he didn't.
I just don't think they want to spend the buyout, and then who are we going to hire?
Yeah, and Baylor faces that problem. They don't have some of the same. They're not in Houston to recruit home in the same way. Demetrius Dean, you mentioned, is a well-coached kid out of Jasper, Texas. I was surprised to see him listed at 6'4", 265. That feels small to me for a tackle. Does that feel like an accurate measurement once you watch him play?
He's at least 6'3". I think he could play tackle because he's just so athletic, but he can't play in Georgia's offense.
Okay. Yeah.
There's just seriously, there's just certain zone schemes. It's like Bedenbaugh's offense at Oklahoma. They're mechanical. He could probably play in that. But what Michigan was trying to do the last couple of years, what Georgia does, we're just bigger and we're going to play ogre ball? Not so much. He's a technician. He's athletic. He beats you to the punch, gets his hands on you quickly, and then drives his feet. He is an O-line coach's happy spot because the kid plays with so much effort and has, the feet to do it. Size will never be his strength. So that's going to be his last attribute that he's got to. He probably needs 2 years. If he was to go to Texas, he wouldn't play his first 2 years. Could he play at Texas? Yeah, but he's going to have to get to 300 pounds to play there because they do play bully ball.
Yeah.
So that's different. If Houston's going to run draws, run screens, do things where there's movement, he's fine. He could play at 290, 295 because he's such a good athlete. But he's never going to be the downhill road grader if you put him at guard. That's like 3rd and 1, they're going to run to the other guard, is my guess. You know what I mean? And that's okay. But
no, you got to have
still work.
I must say you kind of have to have both. I do want to say, and this is not intentionally coming full circle, but in coming full circle, does having the quarterback that is crazy fast and wiggly help with not needing the 320-pound road grader? Does that change what you're able to do? Or are these recruitments working together in a way, I guess, that's like symbiotic?
I think it's partial to what they're trying to do. They're going to have to win with speed. Look, I say this on every show. Over the last 15 years, when Saban won the first title at Bama, there have been 5 programs that have recruited like D-line just at a holistically different level. They're not going to surprise anybody. LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State. I know you're shocked. You're not going to run over those teams. You got to run around them. You got, like, when Auburn won it with Cam Newton, they didn't have anywhere near the talent some of the other teams that they had Cam Newton. So it didn't matter. There's never going to be another guy like that. So you got to find ways to run around guys and throw the football, play outside the numbers. Houston can do that with, like, Demetrius on a screen. He's athletic enough to take on a corner and actually hit him instead of just looking like a big fat guy in space falling over when the guy jukes him. He can actually do the right steps, get his hands on him, and at least be effective. That's how Houston's going to have to play. They're not going to get the 6'6", 320 kid that out of Dallas that Texas won. They're not. So this is the kind of kid they can get that can still win you football games.
Brian covers all things recruiting across the country, does especially a great job in focusing on the southern half of the country. And I want to say thanks again for coming on. Brian, also, though, you host Locked On Seminoles, and I got to get you out of here by asking, as a Florida State content person, have you just been laughing at Florida and Miami and this whole Rashada thing?
Like, Miami did it right. They got it settled immediately when he decommitted. And if Miami's doing it right with all their history, what is Florida doing? I mean, they're suing the head coach for crying out loud.
Suing the head coach.
This is unprecedented, and it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. Thanks again for coming on, Brian. I want to thank Brian for coming on again today and helping us break down the latest and greatest in the great class of 2025 that Coach Willie Fritz and staff are putting together. It's an exciting time in Houston Cougar football, especially after what were some bleak moments last fall. It's nice to have the excitement around the guys coming in, both in the transfer portal, the class 2024, and this class of 2025 that Fritz and company are putting together. Thanks again to Brian. Thanks again to you for making us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougs. You can find me talk all things Houston Cougars at Painsworth 512, PAINSWORTH 512 on all of your social media accounts. Happy to talk all things Houston Cougars. The Rockets, the Astros are maybe making some comebacks. The Texans are more exciting than that. All kinds of fun things in Houston these days. Make sure you find me talk all things Houston sports. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. Is your team, our Houston Cougars, every single day. Go Cougs.